7:41 right now. We'll go to the phone line.
And we would like to welcome back Leigh Richardson to the program. She is a licensed professional counselor, and she is at the Brain Performance Center in Dallas. And she's going to help us, not with the heat, but how to deal with it. Good morning, Leigh.
Good morning.
So, Leigh, apparently the studies are in, and they say that, I know Dallas has been hot like we have because you're not too far away from us. We're about to hit a 107 heat index today here, and it's hot. And so, how does heat affect your brain and your behavior?
Well, you got to think about the brain. It's an organ, just like the heart. And we know when it gets really, really hot, sometimes our heart will start beating faster and harder. Well, it has a similar effect on the brain when it gets really, really hot. That brain only weighs 3 pounds, and it's 80% water. And when you're dehydrated, that brain has a real hard time working. And what most people experience, they'll experience either brain fog, they're just overwhelmed, they have to sit down, catch their breath, or they'll experience irritability. And, it throws off when your brain's out of balance, your body's out of balance. And when everything's out of balance, we're irritable. Some of us, that may be angry. Some of us, it may be sad. But our whole body does not know how to react to the heat, just as the brain doesn't. And what amazes me is I've seen studies that show in the extreme heat, people that suffer from anxiety and depression, 40% more likely to check into a hospital for help.
Really? When heat is an issue? Wow. Well, what about, we're about to hit the road. We're about to be outdoors. We're about to the 4th of July. All of these things. And let's talk about perhaps driving on the highway. What do we need to do? I mean, there may be something like road rage or something, correct?
Absolutely. And your car may get overheated as well.
Sure.
So I think you need to be very prepared. If you're going to get out on the road, I think one of that can start with plan your travel time. And depending upon how far you're going to go, getting in the car and taking off at straight up noon, probably not the safest approach. And plan your travel time. Plan what you have in the car if something does happen. If something happens and you have to get out and walk, do you have a hat in the car? Do you have sunglasses? I mean, be prepared that if you have to put yourself out in that extreme heat, how are you going to protect yourself?
And Leigh, talk to us about fight, flight, freeze cycles.
Okay, well, that's that autonomic nervous system, and anytime that autonomic nervous system gets out of balance, and honestly, that window of tolerance isn't very big, and it doesn't take much to knock it out of balance. And when it does, you start riding that roller coaster, fight, flight, freeze, fight, flight, freeze. And the brain's in control of that because the brain's in control of the body. So when that happens, the best thing to do is to sit down, ground yourself. I always say, feel the energy from the earth, the Schumann wave, at the bottom of your feet, and focus on your breathing. Take long, slow, deep breaths. Feel that air down around that belly button, because if you change your breath rate, you'll change your heart rate. And if you can get your breath rate and your heart rate to dance together, that's called heart rate variability, and that's a sign of wellness. And no matter where you are, no matter what's going on, you got to breathe. So breathe with purpose.
Another thing that happens is stress hormones are released when it's hot. What are those?
Well, your body starts kicking out, those adrenal glands start kicking out all that cortisol. And it's just a normal reaction in our body. And instead of feeding that, but when I say feeding it, if you're not staying hydrated, if you're not paying attention to your nutrition, if you're not keeping your body in a state where it can at least try to bounce back and recover, you're going to be more vulnerable. Just like you're more vulnerable, and I hate to say this as I age, but the older we get, the more vulnerable we get. The youngest children are more vulnerable. And if you have a little bit of anxiety or depression, then that leaves you more open to it. And, it's okay to not be okay, but you have to be prepared, and you have to know how you're going to deal with it.
So should we just try to avoid heat and stay inside in the air conditioner?
Well, if you can do that, that's great. But for most of us, we've got to get out in it. And when we have to get out in it, we need to think about, think about the little things. Where are you going to park your car? Are you willing to walk a little bit extra to be able to park your car in the shade so that when you get in it, nothing hits me harder than when I get into a car. It's 100 degrees outside. You open that car door. You got black interior, and it feels like it's 200 degrees inside.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, you know that feeling.
Sure.
And, so think about how can you minimize your risk. And the sad thing is we can't always. But at least if we think about it, we're prepared. Grab a bottle of water when you're walking out that door. Grab a hat. Do what you can to protect yourself from the heat.
And I think that Dallas has a little bit more of this than we do, but I know we do have humidity, and but it feels like Dallas is a little bit more humid. What do you do to help yourself during that time?
Well, that's that heat index. When it says it's only 82, but it's so humid, it feels like it's 92. And what I do during that time is I think about how I'm dressed, what I need to do for myself. I plan my time. I have 2 dogs that have got to be walked every morning and every evening. So I have to walk them a little bit later in the day. And that doesn't really fit my schedule, but it fits theirs.
Well, that's a good idea. Thanks for the advice. We've been speaking this morning to Leigh Richardson, and she is a licensed professional counselor and founder of the Brain Performance Center, so she knows, and that's in Dallas. She knows what she's talking about. And Leigh is also the author of Turn Your Brain On to Get Your Game On, how, what, and why to peak performance. Leigh, thank you so much for sharing with us this morning. And remind our listeners where to get your book.
They can get that book on Amazon or off of the website, thebrainperformancecenter.com.
All right. Leigh Richardson, stay cool.
Thank you so much. You too.